internet. Can everyone hear me okay? Hopefully you can. Thanks for joining us again. This is part 5, looking at the SSP by Percussa. If you haven't seen or checked out the previous 4 videos, please do check them out after this. We've covered quite a lot in the past 4 videos. We've covered essentially sample playback, external CV modulation, using it as in a live scenario, using MIDI controllers. We've looked at effects, we've looked at onboard sequencing, onboard oscillators, the step sequencer, the envelopes. We've looked at quite a lot. I'm just turning it up a little bit. Should be able to. Okay, good. And actually, what you're hearing now is just one of the sort of presets in there. It's like a 4-voice arpeggiated synth, lots of nice and lush reverbs and stuff going on. I've really enjoyed working with this, and today marks a really special day, essentially, because there's a very special update coming out, and it's going to be available straight after this live stream on the Percussa website. And this is a brand new website, brand new update, and I know Bert and Celine and I've been working really hard on this update to make sure that it's ready for you, and I'm really excited to have it here today to preview it, to show you what it can do. I've installed the update, obviously. I've been playing around with it a little bit myself, and I'll just read a little bit about the update, which you'll be able to download straight after this, but just so I get this exactly right. So the new update now allows you to use the Percussa SSP to stream audio, CV, triggers, gates, and any other signals via the USB on the front. So this USB port on the front now essentially enables you to hook this up to your DAW and stream audio, CV, trigger, gate, and essentially use it as a multi-channel USB interface, which is just amazing. So with one USB cable, you're going to be able to interface the likes of any DAW essentially. In particular today I'm going to be looking using Ableton CV tools, and we're going to be sending out some CV and trigger and envelopes into the SSP all via this USB. I should mention that it can run at different rates, so you get 24 channels at 48k. If you want to go up sample rate, 16 channels at 96 kilohertz. If you want to go up more, 8 channels at 192. I've just been running it at 48k. 24 channels, I/O, down one cable, absolutely brilliant. Just checking everyone can hear this all right. Yep, good. So, like I say, when this is plugged in via USB as in the device port, which is the far right USB port, it will work on Windows and Mac. No drivers is necessary. Testing has been done with Windows 10 latest build, and the latest OS X. Previous versions of Windows and Mac might not work. It's not guaranteed, but it might work. I'm running the latest version of OS X. It's also been tested with the Wasapi API, just for those of you who need to know that. If you do want to change the sample rate, change the amount of channels and I/O on it, you might need to restart your DAW, or if you change it in your DAW, it might just take a moment to kind of refresh that. So I'll show you the new input module, which allows you to interface this basically. It's a beautifully new, redesigned look of the input module. We have looked at the input module before when we looked at input routing, external modulation using the front jacks. It's been redesigned. I'll show you that as well. Also in the update, you get the new updated output module, obviously, as well, to give you those the same kind of interface as the input. There's an updated recorder for USB, recording the USB channels, and there's some more demo presets. So that's what we have. That's what we're going to have a look at today. I think this is a really great upgrade. It's free as well, which is great. So if you've got this, you'll be able to download this straight away. So well done to the guys at Percussa. This is really good. I've got Ableton here, and I've got a few things kind of set up that I'm going to send out over USB to the SSP. I think the easiest thing to do is, I've just got a sample here of a drum beat, and I think what I'll just show you just quickly is just how easy and quick it is just to kick stereo audio out of something like Ableton straight into the SSP. So let's go over to the SSP here first. Shame to destroy this beautiful patch, but I'm just going to erase everything. And if you didn't know, you can erase everything in one go just by hitting the erase button on there, and it does pop up and say you're about to erase everything, by the way. Hit erase again if you're sure. I'm sure. It's just killed everything. There we go. That's what I wanted to do. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to need an input and an output, because we're going to send a signal in this case a drum loop, and we're then going to essentially hear it, and we're going to bring it out the left and right output here. So again, let's click and let's insert an output module, and let's insert the new and improved input module as well. So that's them now in there. What I'll do over in Ableton is I'm just going to start this drum beat going off, and I'm just going to kick it out of. Oh, you should see, by the way, if I go to my preferences, there you can see Percussa. There's 24 in, 24 out. So I'm running this at 48k. I've got all of the channels activated on the input, all of the channels activated on the output as well, and it's working as core audio. I've not had to install any drivers for this at all. So I've just decided, I'm just going to kick this out of output 7 and 8. So that is now sending 7 and 8 channels 7 and 8 straight down that USB. And the reason we know that is in this new input module here, which we have got, is if I go into it, we'll be able to see this new beautifully designed input module. And what this does, as you can see, it gives you a scope for all 24 channels on the input here. And we can actually see 7 and 8 actually jiggling about there, because I've got something coming in from 7 and 8 from Ableton, and it's there. I've just turned it up in Ableton just so you can see it a little bit more there. If your signal's quite low for whatever reason here, you can actually go per channel, and you've got a gain and you've got a bias as well for each channel. So you can increase or decrease the signal coming in, or change the bias. The bias again is I believe the offset within this. So visual representation, which is brilliant, and it just shows you what's coming in to the module, nice and simple. So with that in mind, that we're not hearing anything, but visually we can see that there's something coming in there. So all we've got to do is connect the input to the output here. So again, we just do that like I showed you in the first video. Hold down shift and click the top left, which is the output module. And what I want to do is send, so I'm using 7 and 8. I'm just going to scroll all the way to 7. output 7, and you can see as I scroll over 7, actually also shows me there that there is a signal. And activate that one, and coming out of output 8 as well, which is there, and I'm going to send that into 2. And all we've got to do now is go to our output channel and activate input 1, input 2. There we go. You are now hearing basically this drum loop being played out of Ableton, straight down USB, straight in to the percussor. Nice and simple. If you don't believe me, I'll stop it and I'll start it again. And that is how easy it is to route the audio in to the percussor and straight out via the front there. Yeah, just to confirm, Redwalk's bias is latency compensation. No, it's DC offset, so yeah, it works as an offset. Okay, so with that in mind, you know, once you've got audio running through the SSP, you can take advantage of everything within the SSP. So you could, for example, send it through, I don't know, let's send it through a filter instead. So let's just call up the SVF filter, and I'm going to send the input, instead of going straight to the output, we'll send it to the filter instead. So let's disconnect those outputs, and let's connect the input to the filter. And gosh, it's warm in this studio, I tell you, really hot in here today. So I'm going to go input into the SVF 7 and 8, went past it, into the input, and then let's connect the SVF to the output. And don't forget, you've got, with the SVF, you've got high pass, you've got band pass, and you've got low pass outputs as well. So I'm going to use a low out from the SVF, one going to 1 and 2, like so. Oh, didn't connect my input to the SVF, did I? So we do that. And input 1. Oh, didn't activate the input of the SVF. There we go. Open up the filter. So there we go, we've got Ableton now running through a filter inside of the SSP. Nice and simple. You know, let's add an LFO in here as well. Let's connect the LFO to the filter cut off of the SVF. So let's connect those two together. Let's use the sine wave from the LFO, and let's send that to the cutoff of the SVF. In the SVF, let's activate the cutoff to be modulated. You can hear the LFO's running very fast, it's almost audio rate. You can hear it on the hi-hats. So I'm going to slow those down. Close the filter a bit more. Nice and simple. Okay, so you know, that's a very, very basic instruction of sending some audio out of Ableton straight into the percussor and just using some of the effects in there. Easy peasy. But let's dig a little bit deeper. Maybe we can use some gates and triggers from Ableton. We'll send that also down the USB, and we'll trigger some samples. We'll trigger some synth lines and just push it a little bit more, shall we? So for this, I built a patch already. Show number 5. Here it is. And this is a very, very simple patch. It builds on what we've already looked at basically over the past video. So again, if you go back and look at those, this patch will make a lot of sense to you. We've got a sampler with a kick drum in there and a hi-hat, sample 1, sample 2. We've already got an output. We've got the reverb on the hi-hats, which is then running into a filter, my favorite thing to do, and then we're going to modulate. Maybe we'll modulate that filter with the reverb going through it in the hi-hats and get something funky going on. We've got the quantizer. So let's send some notes to the quantizer from Ableton, which will in turn connect to our oscillator and our LFO. Remember, we used the oscillator and the LFO in a previous video to we use the LFO as like a sub oscillator. It's a great way to kind of fatten up and layer underneath the wavetable oscillator to give you like some real beef. I really like the effect from that. So we've got that in there. They've run through the SVF filter and then through some reverb as well. So so it won't do anything until we insert the new input module and then essentially send the signals out to the various places. So yeah, let's first of all, let's jump over to Ableton and look at what we've got here. I don't know how many of you have used CV Tools yet, and I should say that this isn't a tutorial on how to use CV Tools right now. I'm going to do another video on that, but I'll cover some kind of basics as we're doing it, as we're going along. But I'm happy to do another video on CV Tools. I've only been using it for a few weeks, and I think I've kind of got the hang of it. We was talking about early on the Sonic Talk podcast about how easy it is and how great it is. So I'd definitely like to do some more videos on that. What I've got going on here, I've got this first channel we'll look at, which I've just called Kick, which is kicking out some simple notes. Those notes are going to go to the CV instrument, which is part of the CV Tools package. And that CV instrument allows me, if I turn it on, allows me to send both a gate out and a pitch out. Now, because I'm using a kick drum, I don't want to send out a pitch. I'm just going to send out a gate. And I'm going to send it out of output 1. As you can see, when I choose my output, it gives me all 24 channels available on the Percussa SSP over the USB. So I've just chosen external out, CV gate out, number 1. And what it's basically going to do, it's going to take these MIDI notes here and it's going to convert them into CV gate, kick it out number 1, and then over at the Percussa, what we need to do is say, hey, listen to number 1 and play the kick drum on that sampler. So let's do that. Let's insert in here the input module. This is the new input module, and let's connect that to the sampler. And what we want to do is say input 1, want you to send a essentially anything that you're going to receive on that will trigger the gate of the sample playing sample 1. So we'll do that, and on the sampler itself we're going to turn that on as well. So now if we jump back over to here and we press play, we can hear it's playing back. It's playing back the sample, which is inside the SSP, which is this kick drum I've got going on here. Easy peasy. So that's CV Tools sending a gate signal down the USB into there, triggering the sample, sending out these outputs here. Nice and simple. obviously, just to prove it's live, change some of the kick drum pattern here. There we go. So in the same way, I've got a hi-hat over here. I've got a MIDI note, which I'm going to send to, again, CV instrument on that channel. And I'm going to send it to output 2. And what I want that to do is trigger the hi-hat sample inside of the SSP, which is sample number 2. So in the same way, we've already got our input module, use the same input module. Essentially, we can use the same input module for all inputs, really. So there's no need to recreate a new input module every time you want a new input. That would be ridiculous. The input module handles 24 I/O. So with that in mind, they're already connected, the input and the sampler. So let's scroll down and we're going to choose gate 2 to trigger sample 2. And, oops, my bad, changed the wrong encoder. And we're going to activate sample gate 2 input. And so if we go over to the hi-hat, press play. There we go. So we've got a kick and snare grooving away there. Like I said, the hi-hat's going through this really nice reverb. Pre-delay. And then the hi-hat's also going through a filter. Such a nice combination, that reverb and that filter. Had a lot of fun with that. I'll just back it off a bit for now. Okay, just check to see if we've got any questions. Bit of chat going on in the chat room here. Just those asking about syncing and what have you. Yeah, you can just send clock. You could just send a clock from. You could generate a clock using CV tools. You could just use a normal. You could just use the triggers within CV tools. Just to essentially, you could create 16th notes, or I like sometimes to do kind of odd clock patterns or combinations of as well, which can generate more interesting results. So that in mind, let's now send. So what else have we got going on over here? I've got I've got some MIDI notes here that I'm going to send. I've called this one voice, and I want to send this to the oscillator that I've got. Well, actually, I'm going to send it to the MTQ. I'll just turn this down a second. I'm going to send the pitch to the MTQ, which is going to quantize the pitch coming in. It's going to send it to the oscillator and the LFO. As I mentioned, I'm combining those two together. So jumping back over to here, we've got the CV instrument again, and I'm sending the pitch to output 6 to the SSP, and I've got the envelope here, which I'm going to use. So instead of using an envelope inside of the SSP, which I've shown in previous videos, I'm going to use this envelope here to actually change the amplitude of the oscillators going on in here. So let's first of all assign 6, CV pitch to 6. So jumping back over here, we need to connect the input to the oscillator. Sorry, to the MTQ, my bad. I'm going to send the input to the MTQ, do some quantizing for us. And this is coming in on, I said 6, didn't I? So we scroll down, got all these inputs now, and I'm going to send 6 coming in to the pitch MTQ. You can see that arrow's appeared now, and that MTQ is already connected to those bad boys. And actually, just check also that, yeah, the WTO also needs connecting to the pitch. That needs to receive pitch as well. There we go. Didn't have that one connected. So now you can see the MTQ is connected to both the oscillator and the LFO to control the pitch of those. So that should now kick out essentially some pitch. We'll just go back over here. I'll stop my kick and snare, kick and hi-hat. God, like I say, it is warm in here. And I'll just start playing voice here for the MIDI notes for this. Jumping back over, just to look at our inputs, you can see we've got a lot of stuff going on here. This is my drum loop I had earlier. We've got gate and we've got pitch coming in as well. So you can see everything visually. Can't hear anything. I believe it's because I've got the output. I turned down the output of the synthesizer. And don't forget, you can do this as a way of kind of scaling the output of any sound that you've got going on within the SSP. So I'm scaling basically the volume coming out of this reverb to the output. So that works as essentially as a kind of a mixer, a way to mix your sounds, the volumes within the SSP. So that's all very well, but it's just a constant sound. We need to control the amplitude using an envelope. So like I mentioned, inside of Ableton, we've got this envelope, and that's going to come out of number 5. So let's connect. Just turn that down a little bit before I go crazy. Let's connect the input coming in, and we want number 5, and we're going to send that to. Oh, and first of all, I need to actually connect it to them. So connect it to the oscillator, and now we should see in the list there the ability to get to number 5 WTO. We want the amplitude, and you can see that's the envelope coming in. Let's activate that amplitude of the WTO. So we've got that going on. And also the input going to the LFO. Actually, I'm not sure if we can do that. Let's have a look. So can I send that LFO to there? Yeah, you can change the amplitude of the LFO. Oh, that's cool. So let's do that. Let's send input, like I say, 5 to the LFO amplitude. There we go. So now we've got the envelope coming in on input 5, and it's changing the amplitude of the oscillator and the LFO working together. They're going through the reverb. The reverb you're hearing is in the percussor. So if we play with the envelope, might just turn those up a little bit. Actually, let's put our hi-hat and kick back in for a bit of. There we go. All makes sense now, doesn't it? go back here. It's the filter on my synth. Let's turn the synth up a little bit. Again, I'm just using the scaling. Obviously you can take advantage of things like this has got an echo in CV tools for the gate, which kind of doubles the gate coming out, creates an echo essentially. You get this sort of interesting stuff going on. Which is pretty cool. Another thing I like to do is take something like this shaper and kick that out of the same output that's going to the envelope. So this envelope is going to output 5. Let's also send this shaper and it'll send this shape also to output 5. Turn up the amplitude of that. Suddenly got now quite an interesting movement within the envelope by combining essentially two different. So you've got your normal static sort of linear envelope, and then we've got this weird sort of shaper being added to it at times, and you get this sort of movement, which is cool. So you can see everything that's going on in our scope here. Now remember the drum beat that we had at the beginning that I just sent out of output 7 and 8? Let's add that. Let's add the drum beat, a sampled drum beat playing from Ableton. Let's send that now again back into 7 and 8. In fact, we can still see it on the scope there. Let's add it to the mix here basically, so I can show you how well Ableton syncs up with what's going on inside of here. So you can see 7 and 8, we've got our drums coming in still from before. And all I need to do is connect the input straight to the output now. Those bad boys. And so input 7. Quite like that actually. And we're going to go into input 1. Hear that on the left hand side. Let's get it in stereo. 8 input 2. So that's this drum beat playing here. Take it out. Add it. Nice. Let's open that filter on those hi-hats. Let's add some more reverb. Just check the chat room. Seems like everyone's happy at the minute. Cool. If you've got any questions, keep asking. Percussa are in on the YouTube chat right now. Again, this is why we do these live streams, so you can ask questions directly to them and to me. better than just kind of filming this and just chucking it on the web and responding to your answers then. So there we go. We've got a drum loop playing out of Ableton. We're triggering a hi-hat, a kick drum. We're using effects within here on the samples. We've got a bass line going, which we're controlling using envelopes, wave shaping, envelope shaper rather. Turn the kick drum up a little bit. So coming out the sampler. Just turn that kick up. Cool. I'll tell you what might be quite interesting. Let's send one last thing out of Ableton, and let's change the filter of those hi-hats. So you've got the hi-hats going into reverb and then into the filter. Let's modulate the filter cutoff and get something interesting going on there. So I'm going to use the input module again, jumping over to Ableton. I've already set up a channel hi-hat filter mod here. If I get that playing, what that's doing, just turn that down a sec. What that's doing is creating a note. It's playing a note. That note is then triggering this CV instrument, and it's playing this kind of funky waveform here, if you like. And it'll play that, and it'll kick that out of external output 3. And we'll assign 3 to the filter cutoff inside of here. So let's do that. Let's jump back over to the SSP. So we need to connect the input to the filter. So we hold down our shift, and it's third along the bottom. 1, 2, 3 on the bottom. So we'll press that. And we're going to use number 3. So let's scroll up to 3. I did have a chat with Bert at Percussa about maybe hiding some of these parameters that you're not using, just so it means you're not scrolling so much sometimes. It's not a big issue, it's really not, because you can scroll really, really fast on this thing. But it would be maybe nice to just hide the things that you're not using. So we want to send input 3 to filter cutoff, which is there. Let's go over to the filter cutoff and turn on the cutoff. So it's now being modulated. Actually, you can hear that straight away. You can hear it on the hi-hat. I'll just stop the synth line. Bring back in the synth line. So there you go. How is that for starters? It's quite a lot that I've already covered there. I've been on the go now for about 40 odd minutes. Having a nice little jam there, so I just added some more hi-hats. I just played around with the kick drum variation a little bit more there, just added some effects, pitched up some of the samples, that kind of thing. Playing a lot with the filtering and the reverbs in here. Obviously there's a ton more stuff that you can do with this. I could sit here all night and I could kick even more CV and gate from over here into the SSP. Is there, let me just check in the chat room, is there anything specific? If I can make something in Max for Live, I'll send you a link. Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, a lot of the stuff that was in CV Tools, I guess, is Max for Live kind of based stuff. Is there anything else anyone wants to know before we sign off? I don't want to make this too long. There's so much you can do with this, and anyone who's got the SSP, you can go and download this as soon as this live stream's finished, basically. If you've just been kind of started watching these videos, go back to number 1. This is number 5 of 5 of these videos, and it's a bit of a learning curve, so you might want to go back and check out number 1 and go through basically things like triggering these samples and the interface and all that kind of stuff. It's already been covered before. Just checking if there's any other questions Percussa are asking. If there is, of course, and we're not on air and you're watching this afterwards, we will respond, no problem at all. But I'm really looking forward to exploring this a little bit more in terms of what you can do, not just with CV Tools, but you know, Bitwig have got the ability to send stuff out now. You know, this negates the need for a DC coupled sound card as well, don't forget. So those of you who are thinking about getting into this world and using things like CV Tools and needing DC coupled sound card, you don't need it for this. In fact, I believe all of the I/O, all of the jacks on here are DC coupled anyway, so you can use this as a DC coupled sound card as well as a very extensive and powerful module in your Eurorack system. Have I tested multi-channel out? Yes, I have. Yeah, I've tested the multi-channel out quite a bit and recorded things back into Ableton. That's been done. 2 disc better. Yeah, I know it's a fabulous update. It really is, and again, this is free, and I think this is just testament also to the fact that Percussa, you know, Bert and Celine are working really hard on this as a team to provide updates and listen to the users and get their feedback on this. And if you go over to their forum, you can get stuck in there, you can ask questions, and there's regular correspondence in there about anything that you might want to either suggest or if you need any help in using the module at all. But I hope these videos have been useful for you. I'll do some more depending on what sort of feedback I get about this module and if there's anything else you want me to explore. But I've covered a lot, and really now it comes down to the way that you use it. You know, as much as you can sit here and go through all these different kind of modules and what they can and can't do, it comes down to how you're going to use it and how you're going to implement it into the systems that you've got. And I can see this being used in a live scenario. We covered that in video 2 or 3. I can see this being used in the studio as a sampler, as a synthesizer, as an effects machine, as a sequencer, and now as essentially as a USB class compliant sound card, basically. So yeah, with that, let's see if there's anything else. No, there's nothing else coming up. Can you get a groove into the step sequencer? I'm using Ableton at the minute, so yeah, I guess I could use the groove within that. If you're using the step sequencer within the SSP, you could create a groove by sending it kind of irregular clocks, if you like. That's the only way I can think of at the minute. I don't think that there is like a groove or a swing within the sequencer at the moment. Again, if that's something that people want, suggest that on the SSP forum, and these things will get added to the long list of updates and things that are going to be constantly updated and provided to you. So with that, oh, Jeff, is it 24 additional I/O, or are they doubled with the I/O on the SSP? Oh, so you mean with the inputs? Yeah, so you've got 24 I/O on the USB, and you've got the 16 inputs on the front here. The 16 input jacks are summed with the incoming 24. So basically, and this can be pretty cool. So if I'm sending stuff CV down input 1 and 2 on the USB, and I've got, say, MATTHS connected to input 1 and 2 on the front jacks, they get summed together, which allows you to kind of start developing some really crazy CV modulation signals by combining, and I'm a big fan of combining CV signals and also melodic elements as well to come up with interesting stuff as well. Anything else? Darren says it's a box of tools. It certainly is. There's a lot in there, as we mentioned. The modules that we've currently got are there's quite a lot already. Inputs, outputs, delay. There's reverb. There's the busing, which we've looked at. For those of you who can compile stuff using Linux, you can have VST going on in there. We've looked at the filters, step sequences. There's noise in there. All these blank spaces hopefully will be filled up with nice new things. I've put forward quite a lot of suggestions to the gang at Percussa about the sort of things that I would like to see as well. Obviously, having played with this quite a lot, there's an ARP in there, there's MIDI in there. Having said that, what's the SWI? SWI I thought was swing. I remember now it's switch. So you can actually use it's a switch module in there. Okay, I'm going to stop rambling now. Been on here for 50 minutes. It's far too hot to be inside. So I'm going to sign off and just thank you all and to the Percussa team as well for letting me play with this and giving me the chance to play with this and what have you. So yeah, please give this a like, subscribe, and do share as well, please. I'd really appreciate that. Trying to grow this channel a little bit more as well. So that'd be great if you give me a thumbs up and a subscribe and a share. Thank you very much. So with that, I'll play you guys out, and I'll see you all on the other side, I guess. See you later.